All right, welcome back to the channel. So, more drama in the Errol Spence Jr. Terence Crawford saga. Errol Spence says 70-30 ain't good anymore. He's going to have y'all he's going to be asking for 80-20 to fight Terence Crawford. And he even goes further and says, just to make sure things are clear, that belts don't feed my kids. So he's talking about making that money. Let's talk about that as another hurdle, or man, something they could probably get over. You know, in order to make this fight. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. Ah, man, gotta love it, man. We got some really big fights in boxing, and I think, the old saying that if it ain't one thing or another, definitely applies to boxing and trying to get like the absolute best fights that we can get. And, sometimes though, I have to admit that I kind of don't mind sometimes, man, because a lot of the conversations that go on around, let me be clear. I hate that we don't get the fights. However, there is the conversation and the drama that leads up to the fight that can be kind of entertaining. And this whole negotiation thing between Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford, to me, has been very entertaining, primarily because I know what's going on, and while they're having a natural progression towards the fight regardless. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like I listen to it and I'm like, and I love the back and forth. I love the banter. But at the end of the day, both these guys know if they get past, their next couple fights, that they're going to have to go head up, right? So the percentage thing, I think, is a very, very real impediment to it. But I do think overall, before I really get into it, that, it's a bit of a negotiation back and forth, man. But as you look at, really where the parties stand right now, Errol Spence Jr. is saying, I think originally they said that it was 60-40, right? Now, from Errol Spence Jr.'s position, original offer of 60-40 for Terence Crawford fight was extremely fair, because Errol Spence Jr. is without a doubt the bigger star. You know what I mean? Absolutely, positively is the bigger star. And Terence Crawford has said that, that he wanted 50-50 or wanted 60-40 in his favor. Now, there's an argument for, this is what I would say, and I think that this is being very, very fair, that there is definitely an argument that Terence Crawford brings a lot of value to that fight and elevates the value of the fight in a total dollar sense. That's the way that it really should be looked at, because percentages of what, right? Like, I want 80% of what? You get 20% of what? There's a lot of questions when you say 80-20 before you can just brush off, or a 50-50 or 60-40, 70-30. Whenever you do that, you have to say to yourself, okay, well, if you want 80% of the revenue of the fight, it's 80% of what number, right? You know what I mean? And what does that number consist of? So, there's just so much in that. But to the extent that these guys mean that they're going to get, their whole total teams are going to divide that up, Terence Crawford's best argument is that he has won so many championship belts, right? He won belts at 135, and that he would say would bring value to his resume, right? Because you have to have some way to monetize it, right? So what are the things that Terence Crawford has that really brings value? Well, it's his history at 135, his history at 140, and it's his history at 147, right? Of winning belts and being a top pound-for-pound fighter. The other side of it is, though, that when you look at the financial situation, because he's been with top rank, that doesn't translate into actual revenue produced. So his value, for the most part, comes from the belts, while Errol Spence Jr., when he's saying, and just to be clear, right, that the belts don't feed my kids. So when we're going to split the money has to be based on, I would only assume that this is what Errol Spence Jr. is saying, that it has to be based on the amount of revenue that you bring in your fights. So while Terence Crawford is most definitely skill-wise and as far as marketing and all that brings tremendous value to it, from Errol Spence Jr.'s perspective, it's a big mismatch in the revenue for their fights produced, right? As of right now, Errol Spence Jr. is the biggest the only fight that recently that has been bigger than an Errol Spence Jr. pay-per-view was Deontay Wilder Tyson Fury, right? That was the only one, and that was, was it maybe twice the size? I don't know if it was twice the size, but that was a really big fight. But after that, and everybody of note has fought. Okay, Anthony Joshua's fought in the pandemic. Errol Spence Jr.'s fought in the pandemic. Terence Crawford's fought in the pandemic. Tyson Fury's locked up, so that don't even matter. You know what I mean? Canelo Alvarez specifically has done so, and the numbers say of those post-pandemic fights are the ones happening over the last year. Because hey, man, it's been a solid year. The pandemics, the fight with the last major fight pre-pandemic was what? The Deontay Wilder Tyson Fury fight. After that, and that was in February of 2021. So that's over a year. We're looking at a good bit over a year now. So the numbers are just what the numbers are, and Errol Spence Jr. has the biggest gates and he has the biggest pay-per-view sales numbers, period. Much bigger than Anthony Joshua's, bigger than Canelo's. Now, he had bigger gate than Canelo, and Canelo is on the zone, so nobody has to pay pay-per-view for that. That's a regular scheduled fight. And by the way, one by the which was outdone by Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. in an exhibition fight, right? So, it's just, that's a tough scenario. But now this is what I'm hoping will happen is that, this fight should be big enough where maybe they can still take it. They can take advantage of what Triller is doing and what Triller is doing with Mike Tyson and those guys, and having somebody that is an independent guy or an independent company that just buys into the fight and says something like, look, what's in the best interest, or what's the concern for both people, right? Errol Spence Jr. wants big money. Maybe Terence Crawford wants guaranteed money, right? Where they could say, hey, we can give you, what if Terence, we could guarantee you, $25 million for this fight. Guarantee you $25 million a fight, and we'll guarantee Errol Spence Jr., we'll guarantee Errol Spence Jr., 15. Well, no, he wouldn't take that. We'll guarantee him 30. And then after that, you can split it 80-20, right? And give him the pay-per-views, because we're going to you get 20% of the pay-per-views after that, because we're guaranteeing you $20 million, right? So if somebody wanted to buy the fight, and there's people that are buying the Anthony Joshua fight, want to buy the Anthony Joshua Tyson Fury fight, and these guys want to put in a lot of money to do that, then why wouldn't they be able to structure something for something as big as Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford? Now, I say that, though, knowing that these guys are fighting their way to that fight, because Ugas versus Errol Spence Jr. gets 3 of the belts together. If Terence Crawford can beat Josecito Lopez and then Sean Porter, that says a lot, and it's enough timing and perfect timing for that fight to happen. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think, and with that, I'm out. Peace.